Hi, everyone. In the age of IoT, addressing vulnerabilities in devices is crucial for protecting personal data and ensuring system integrity through the development of robust security protocols. Today's podcast is about IoT security and data protection. Stay tuned.
All right, so today we're diving into cybersecurity,
Okay.
but with a bit of a twist. We're focusing on the Internet of Things,
Right.
all those smart devices we have popping up everywhere in our lives.
Yeah, it's fascinating how interconnected everything is becoming.
Right.
But with that interconnectedness comes a whole new dimension to cybersecurity.
Yeah, I was reading that in 2024 alone, there was a 400% surge
Wow.
in cyberattacks targeting these IoT devices globally.
Yeah.
Pretty alarming statistic.
It is concerning, and it's not just about the number of attacks, but
Yeah.
also about the potential impact.
Right.
We're not just talking about someone hacking your smart speaker to
Right.
play annoying music.
Yeah.
We're talking about potential breaches
Right.
of sensitive personal information, health data,
Yeah.
even the security of critical infrastructure.
Speaking of breaches, remember that Roku incident back in 2024?
Oh, yeah.
Hackers use stolen passwords from other data breaches
Right.
to access thousands of accounts.
Yeah, that's a classic example of what's called credential stuffing.
Okay.
It highlights the unfortunate habit many of us have
Yeah.
of reusing the same password across multiple platforms.
Yeah. So it's not just about the security of the devices themselves,
Right.
but also about our own cybersecurity habits.
Absolutely. But let's talk more about the devices themselves.
Okay.
Research indicates that a significant portion, around 70%
Wow.
of IoT devices, are vulnerable to at least one type of cybersecurity threat.
Okay.
This is often due to a lack of robust security features from the manufacturing stage itself.
Wow. That's pretty sobering. 70% is a huge number.
It is.
What makes these devices so susceptible to attacks in the first place?
Well, one key factor is their limited processing power and memory.
Okay.
Many IoT devices simply don't have the resources to run complex security software.
So it's like trying to run the latest antivirus software
Right.
on an old, outdated computer.
Exactly. Another issue is the lack of regular security updates. Unlike our computers or phones, many IoT devices don't have a system for patching vulnerabilities.
Okay.
And even when updates are available, users often don't install them.
Okay, so we've got devices with limited security, often running outdated software.
Yeah,
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
it can be.
What are some of the specific threats we're talking about here?
One of the most common threats is data breaches,
Okay.
where hackers gain unauthorized access to the information collected by these devices.
Right.
This could be anything from your smart speaker recording your conversations
Okay.
to your fitness tracker revealing your location history.
That's a bit unsettling. Feels like a real invasion of privacy.
It can be, and these breaches aren't just about stealing information.
Right.
They can also compromise the integrity of entire systems.
Can you give an example of that?
Imagine a hacker gaining control of a city's traffic light system.
Oh, wow.
They could cause massive disruptions, even accidents.
That's a frightening thought. So we're not just talking about individual devices being compromised. We're talking about potential systemic risks.
Precisely. And it's not just about external threats.
Okay.
There's also the risk of insider threats.
What do you mean by insider threats?
This could be a disgruntled employee who has access to sensitive systems,
Okay.
or someone who accidentally introduces a vulnerability.
So it's a multifaceted problem.
It is.
It's not just about hackers trying to break in from the outside.
Right.
It's also about internal vulnerabilities and human error.
Exactly. And that's what makes securing the IoT ecosystem such a complex challenge.
So it sounds like we're in a bit of a predicament.
Yeah.
We're surrounded by these potentially vulnerable devices.
Right.
And the threats are real and significant.
It's definitely a cause for concern, but it's not all doom and gloom.
Okay.
There are things that can be done to mitigate these risks
Right.
and build a more secure IoT ecosystem.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some of the solutions being developed to address these challenges?
One crucial approach is to design security into IoT devices from the very beginning. What's called the security by design principle.
So rather than trying to patch up vulnerabilities after the fact,
Right.
it's about building security into the foundation of these devices.
Exactly. Another important element is robust authentication,
Okay.
making sure only authorized users and devices can access the network.
Like using strong passwords and multi-factor authentication.
Precisely. And it's not just about technical solutions.
Right.
Raising user awareness is crucial.
I can imagine that's a big part of it. People need to be aware of the risks
Absolutely.
and take basic precautions to protect themselves.
Educating people about things like changing default passwords
Right.
and updating firmware can go a long way in preventing common attacks.
So it sounds like a multifaceted approach is needed.
It is.
It's not just about the technology, it's also about user education and awareness.
Exactly. And it's about collaboration between manufacturers, governments, and individuals.
Right.
We all have a role to play in creating a more secure IoT world.
Okay, so we've established that IoT security is a serious concern. But there are solutions being developed.
There are.
What about the wider landscape? Are governments and industry bodies doing anything to address this issue?
There's definitely been a push for stricter regulations and standards for IoT security.
Okay.
The EU, for instance, has introduced the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR,
Right.
which sets strict guidelines for handling personal data,
Okay.
including data collected by IoT devices.
That's a good step. But GDPR is primarily focused on Europe.
Right.
What about other regions?
Governments worldwide are stepping up their efforts.
Okay.
The U.S., for example, enacted the IoT Cybersecurity Improvement Act,
Okay.
setting minimum security standards for devices used by federal agencies.
That's encouraging. But with technology evolving so rapidly,
Yeah.
is it even possible to stay ahead of the threats?
It's a constant challenge, but there are promising developments.
Okay.
One exciting area is the use of artificial intelligence, or AI, in cybersecurity.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about AI being used in security. How does that work exactly?
AI can analyze huge amounts of data to detect anomalies and potential threats in real time.
Oy.
It can learn to recognize unusual patterns of behavior
Right.
that might indicate a cyber attack, allowing for quicker responses.
So it's like having a super smart security guard
Yes,
who can spot suspicious activity that a human might miss.
that's a good way to put it. Another area being explored is blockchain technology,
Great.
which can help secure data and devices through its decentralized and tamper-proof nature.
That's the technology behind cryptocurrencies, right?
It is.
It seems like it's being applied in so many different fields now.
It is. The beauty of blockchain is that it creates a transparent and secure record of transactions,
Right.
making it much harder for hackers to manipulate data or devices.
Ah. Okay. We've talked about vulnerabilities, threats,
Yeah.
and some potential solutions.
Yeah,
What about the impact of insecure IoT devices on everyday life?
sure.
How does this affect individuals and society as a whole?
The potential consequences are vast. On a personal level, insecure devices can expose sensitive personal data,
Right.
leading to identity theft, financial loss, even physical harm.
It's a bit scary to think about the potential consequences.
Yeah.
It's not just about our data being stolen. It's
Right.
about our physical safety being compromised as well.
Exactly, and it goes beyond individuals.
Okay.
Insecure IoT devices can disrupt businesses,
Right.
impact critical infrastructure, even influence elections.
So this is not just about protecting our gadgets.
Right.
It's about safeguarding our entire digital ecosystem.
Precisely, the interconnectedness of IoT means that a single vulnerability
Right.
can have ripple effects across multiple systems.
So it's a systemic issue.
It is.
We need to think about security in a more holistic way
Absolutely.
rather than just focusing on individual devices.
Exactly, and that's what makes this such a fascinating and challenging area.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
But yeah.
We've explored the vulnerabilities of IoT devices, the potential impact of cyber attacks,
Yeah.
and some of the solutions being developed.
Right.
I'm definitely starting to appreciate the complexity of this issue.
It's a complex and rapidly evolving landscape,
Right.
but by understanding the challenges and opportunities,
Yeah.
we can work towards a future where IoT benefits humanity
Right.
while respecting our values.
Let's take a short break, and then we'll delve deeper into the specific challenges and solutions
Okay.
for securing the IoT ecosystem.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll be back in a bit.
Okay. Welcome back to our deep dive into cybersecurity and the Internet of Things.
In part one, we talked about the vulnerabilities of these devices and the potential impact of attacks.
Right.
But it sounds like there's a lot being done to make things safer.
That's right. There's a growing movement towards what's called security by design,
Okay.
which means incorporating security from the very start of the development process.
So instead of adding security as an afterthought, it's baked into the very foundation of the device.
Exactly. It's about minimizing vulnerabilities from the outset.
Okay.
One key aspect of this is minimizing the attack surface.
Attack surface, what's that?
It's basically the number of points where a hacker could potentially gain access to a device or system.
So fewer entry points for those with bad intentions?
Precisely. This involves things like disabling unnecessary features,
Okay.
limiting network access, and using secure protocols for communication.
So it's about streamlining the device's functionality
Right.
to focus on what's essential and then making sure those core functions are secure.
Exactly. Another crucial element is strong authentication,
Okay.
making sure only authorized users and devices can access the system.
Okay.
That include things like using strong passwords and multi-factor authentication.
Strong passwords. I think
Oh.
we all know that by now.
Right.
But what exactly is multi-factor authentication?
Sure.
I've heard the term, but I'm not entirely sure what it means.
It's an extra layer of security in addition to your password.
Okay.
You need to provide another piece of information, like a code sent to your phone or a fingerprint scan.
So it's like having two locks on your door instead of just one.
Exactly.
Makes it much harder for someone to break in.
Exactly. And it's becoming increasingly common for everything.
Right.
From online banking to email accounts.
Speaking of making things harder for hackers, what about data encryption?
Sure.
How does that fit into the picture?
Encryption is essential. It's about converting data into an unreadable format,
Okay.
protecting it from unauthorized access.
Okay.
Think of it like putting your sensitive information in a locked safe.
So even if someone manages to get their hands on the data, they can't read it without the key.
Exactly. And there are different types of encryption used,
Okay.
depending on whether the data is being transmitted or stored.
Can you give us some examples?
One widely used method is AES,
Okay.
the Advanced Encryption Standard. It's like a super strong lock that's used by governments and businesses worldwide.
And what about securing the networks that these devices connect to?
Yeah.
Is that a whole other ballgame?
It is, and it's a crucial part of the equation.
Right.
One important concept is network segmentation,
Yeah.
which involves dividing a network into smaller, isolated segments.
So it's like having separate rooms in a house, each with its own lock.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
If one part of the network is compromised, the damage is contained to that segment.
It seems like it would be pretty complicated to manage all those separate segments.
It can be, but there are tools and technologies that help.
Okay.
For example, firewalls act as barriers between different segments,
Okay.
controlling the flow of traffic.
So they're like security guards for the network, checking everyone's ID before letting them through.
Exactly. And then there are intrusion detection and prevention systems.
Oh, those sound serious. What do?
They constantly monitor network traffic for suspicious activity.
Okay.
It's like having security cameras and motion detectors for your network.
So if they detect something fishy, they can sound the alarm.
Exactly. They can alert administrators, block traffic, or even take automated actions to neutralize the threat.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. It's like having a high-tech security system that never sleeps.
And with the growing sophistication of cyber attacks,
Right.
these systems are becoming increasingly important.
We talked earlier about the role of artificial intelligence in cybersecurity.
Right.
How is AI being used to protect IoT devices and networks?
AI is a game changer in this field.
Right.
It can analyze huge amounts of data to detect anomalies and potential threats that traditional security systems might miss.
So it's like having a super smart detective on the case.
Yes.
Able to spot subtle clues and connect the dots.
Exactly. AI can identify patterns of behavior that might indicate a cyber attack,
Right.
even if those patterns haven't been seen before.
That's incredible. So AI can not only detect threats, but also predict them.
In a way, yes.
Okay.
By analyzing past data and identifying trends, AI can help anticipate potential attacks
Right.
and take proactive measures to prevent them.
It sounds like AI is taking cybersecurity to a whole new level.
It is, and it's not just about threat detection. AI is also being used to improve data privacy.
That's interesting. How does that work?
One example is differential privacy,
Okay.
which involves adding noise to data sets to protect the privacy of individuals
Okay.
while still allowing for meaningful analysis.
So you can still analyze the data and get useful insights,
Right.
but without compromising anyone's personal information.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool for balancing the need for data analysis
Right.
with the right to privacy.
It seems like AI is becoming an indispensable tool in the cybersecurity arsenal.
It is.
But with all this advanced technology,
Right.
are there still challenges in securing the IoT ecosystem?
Absolutely. One of the biggest challenges is the sheer complexity of IoT environments.
Okay.
With billions of devices, protocols, and systems,
Right.
it can be difficult to get a handle on the overall security posture.
It's like trying to secure a giant sprawling city
Right.
with millions of interconnected buildings, each with its own unique vulnerabilities.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Another challenge is the lack of skilled cybersecurity professionals.
Mhm.
The demand for expertise in this field is far greater than the supply.
So it's not just about having the right technology.
Right.
It's about having the right people to manage and implement those technologies effectively.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of standardization. With so many different manufacturers and protocols, it's difficult to implement consistent security measures
Right.
across the entire ecosystem.
It's like trying to build a secure house,
Right.
using materials from different suppliers, each with their own unique quirks and potential flaws.
Exactly. The lack of standardization makes it harder to secure IoT devices and systems as you have to deal with a patchwork of different technologies and security approaches.
So it's not just a technical challenge,
Right,
it's
yeah.
an organizational and logistical one as well.
Precisely. And all of these challenges are compounded by the rapid pace of technological change.
Right.
New devices and protocols are emerging all the time, making it difficult to keep up.
It's a moving target, and security professionals have to constantly adapt and evolve their strategies.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important to stay informed about the latest trends in IoT security
Right.
and to embrace a mindset of continuous learning.
It sounds like a fascinating but challenging field to be in.
It is, but it's also incredibly important. As we become more reliant on interconnected technologies, the stakes only get higher.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the technical aspects of IoT security,
Right.
but what about the human factor?
Sure.
What can individuals do to protect themselves and their data in this increasingly connected world?
That's a great question, and it's an important one.
Right.
Even with all the technological advancements, individual awareness and action are crucial.
So it's not just about relying on technology to keep us safe.
Right.
It's about being smart and proactive ourselves.
Exactly. And the good news is there are some simple steps everyone can take
Okay.
to improve their IoT security.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Okay.
What are some of the top tips you would give to our listeners?
First and foremost, be aware of the IoT devices you're using and the data they're collecting. Take an inventory of all your connected devices.
Okay.
And think about what information they have access to.
So it's about being conscious of our digital footprint and understanding the potential risks.
Exactly. Once you know what devices you have and what data they're collecting,
Right.
you can start to take steps to secure them.
What are some practical steps people can take?
One of the most basic but crucial steps is to change the default passwords on all your devices.
Okay.
Default passwords are often easy to guess
Right.
and can make devices vulnerable to attacks.
It's surprising how many people still use default passwords.
It is.
It's like leaving the key under the mat.
Yeah,
You're practically inviting someone to break in.
you're right. It's also important to choose strong, unique passwords for each device.
Okay.
Don't reuse passwords across multiple accounts,
Right.
as this can make it easier for hackers to compromise your entire digital life.
So it's like having different keys for each door in your house.
Right.
If one key is lost or stolen, the thief can't get into every room.
That's a great analogy. And whenever possible, enable multi-factor authentication for your accounts.
Okay.
This adds an extra layer of security by requiring you to provide multiple forms of identification to log in.
We talked about multi-factor authentication earlier.
Right.
Using a code sent to your phone or email address, for example.
Exactly. It might seem like a hassle,
Right.
but it's a simple step that can significantly enhance your security.
Yeah.
And be mindful of the information you share online,
Right.
especially on social media. Avoid sharing personal details that could be used to identify you or to guess your passwords.
So it's about being selective about what we share publicly
Right.
and protecting our digital footprint.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's also important to be cautious about connecting to public Wi-Fi networks,
Okay.
as these can be unsecured and vulnerable to attack.
So stick to our home or work Wi-Fi whenever possible.
That's generally safer. If you do need to use public Wi-Fi, consider using a virtual private network, or VPN, which encrypts your internet traffic and makes it more difficult for attackers to intercept your data.
So it's like having a secret tunnel for your data to travel through,
Right.
keeping it hidden from prying eyes.
Exactly. And finally, keep your device's software up to date.
Okay.
Install security updates as soon as they're available,
Okay.
as these often fix known vulnerabilities.
We discussed this earlier.
Right.
Automated updates can make this process easier, but it's important to ensure those updates are coming from trusted sources.
Exactly. By taking these simple steps, individuals can significantly reduce their risk of becoming victims of cyber attacks.
It sounds like it's a combination of being aware of the risks
Right.
and taking some basic precautions.
That's right. And remember, security is an ongoing process.
Okay.
It's not something you do once and then forget about.
Right.
Stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay safe.
Great advice. It seems like we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about the vulnerabilities of IoT devices, the importance of security by design, the role of AI,
Yeah.
the challenges of securing these complex systems,
Right.
and some practical tips for individuals.
And we're not done yet.
Maybe.
There's still much more to explore in this fascinating and rapidly evolving world.
Well, I, for one, am eager to hear more.
Okay.
What else do you have in store for us in the final part of our deep dive?
We'll be delving into the legal and regulatory landscape surrounding IoT security.
Okay.
We'll discuss what governments around the world are doing to address the unique challenges posed by these devices
Like,
and how they're trying to create a more secure environment for everyone.
it sounds like a crucial piece of the puzzle.
It is.
I'm looking forward to learning more about it.
Me too. Join us for the final part of our deep dive.
Oh.
Where we'll explore the future of IoT security and discuss what steps we can all take to ensure a safe and secure connected world.
Sounds good. We'll be right back after a quick break. Welcome back to our deep dive into cybersecurity in the age of IoT.
We've talked about the technology, the threats, and the solutions, but there's another crucial aspect we need to address: the legal and regulatory landscape.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's all well and good to talk about strong passwords and encryption,
Right.
but who's setting the rules of the road when it comes to IoT security?
Well, it's a complex area, especially with devices and companies operating across borders.
Right.
But there's been a definite push for stricter regulations and international cooperation.
We touched on this earlier. Regulations like GDPR in Europe and CCPA in California
Right.
are focused on protecting personal data. Right.
Exactly. These regulations give individuals more control over their data,
Okay.
including the right to know what's being collected, the right to have their data deleted, and
Yeah.
the right to opt out of data collection altogether.
That's empowering for individuals, but those are specific to certain regions.
Right.
What about the rest of the world?
There's a growing global trend towards data privacy legislation.
Okay.
Many countries are enacting or developing their own comprehensive data protection laws.
So it's becoming less about regional regulations and more about a global consensus on data protection.
That's the direction things are moving in, and it's not just about data privacy.
Right.
Governments are also focusing on setting minimum security standards for IoT devices themselves.
So holding manufacturers accountable for building secure devices from the start.
Precisely. A good example is the UK, which was the first country to mandate specific cybersecurity standards for consumer IoT devices.
Okay.
These standards cover things like strong passwords, secure updates,
Right.
and vulnerability disclosure policies.
That's interesting. So the UK is leading the way in setting those kinds of standards.
They're definitely at the forefront, and these initiatives are having a ripple effect, encouraging other countries to follow suit.
Makes sense. No one wants to be left behind when it comes to cybersecurity.
Exactly. And there are also international efforts to harmonize these standards and regulations.
Right.
Organizations like the International Organization for Standardization,
Right.
ICE, are working on developing global standards for IoT security.
So it's about creating a common language and a common set of rules for everyone to follow.
Precisely, having universal standards makes it easier for manufacturers to build secure devices.
Right.
And for consumers to understand what level of security to expect.
Okay, so we've got regulations focusing on data privacy and standards for device security.
Right.
What about tools or resources for consumers? Is there anything out there
Here.
to help people make informed choices about the devices they buy?
There are some helpful resources emerging.
Right.
One example is the U.S. Cyber Trust Mark program,
Okay.
which is being developed by the Federal Communications Commission.
Okay.
This program will create a label that identifies IoT devices
Okay.
that meet certain security standards.
So it's like a safety rating system for IoT devices.
Exactly.
Similar to what we have for cars or appliances.
Exactly. It gives consumers a simple way to assess the security of a device before they buy it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It can be overwhelming for consumers to try to figure all this stuff out on their own.
It can be, and that's why initiatives like the Cyber Trust Mark are so important.
Right.
They provide a trusted source of information that consumers can rely on.
Okay, so we've covered the current state of regulations and standards.
Right.
But what about the future? What are some key trends and predictions for the future of IoT security?
One area that's attracting a lot of attention is the use of artificial intelligence, or AI, in cybersecurity.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, AI being used for threat detection and response.
Right. But AI's role is likely to expand even further. Imagine self-healing networks,
Okay.
where the system can automatically identify and fix vulnerabilities without human intervention.
That sounds pretty futuristic.
It's closer than you might think. AI can analyze vast amounts of data to identify patterns and predict potential threats,
Right.
allowing for proactive security measures.
So AI is not just about reacting to threats,
Right.
but also about anticipating them and preventing them.
Exactly. And as AI algorithms become more sophisticated, they'll be able to handle increasingly complex security tasks.
It sounds like AI is going to be a key player in the future of IoT security.
It definitely has the potential to be a game changer.
Right.
But there are also challenges. We need to ensure that AI is developed and used responsibly and ethically,
Right.
addressing potential biases and unintended consequences.
That's an important point. Technology is a powerful tool, but it needs to be used wisely.
Absolutely. Beyond AI, there's a growing focus on supply chain security.
We've talked about that as well, the importance of securing the entire process from manufacturing to distribution.
Right. It's about recognizing that vulnerabilities can be introduced at any point in the chain.
So it's a holistic approach to security.
Exactly. And blockchain technology is also being explored for its potential in IoT security.
We touched on blockchain earlier, its ability to create secure and transparent records.
Exactly. Blockchain can be used to enhance data integrity, ensure device authenticity, and even automate security processes.
It seems like there are a lot of promising technologies and approaches emerging in this field.
There are, and that's what makes this such an exciting and dynamic area. It's a constant evolution,
Right.
with new challenges and new solutions emerging all the time.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into cybersecurity and the Internet of Things,
Right.
what are your final thoughts for our listeners?
Well, I think the key takeaway is that IoT security is everyone's responsibility.
Okay.
It's not just about manufacturers building secure devices or governments implementing regulations.
Right.
Individuals also have a role to play.
That makes sense. We all benefit from the convenience and connectivity of IoT devices.
Right.
So we should all be invested in keeping them secure.
Exactly. By being aware of the risks, taking basic precautions, and advocating for stronger security measures, we can all contribute to a safer and more secure IoT ecosystem.
Great advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of cybersecurity and the Internet of Things.
It's been my pleasure, and remember, stay curious, stay informed, and stay secure.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for listening.